This lesson we're going to be selecting the container that we're adding flex to, and we're going to be updating some of the elements with various sizes. So the first thing we do is select display and flex value. For the elements within container, we can go out and refresh just to make sure that everything is working properly. And then we can set various values for the elements that are contained within it. So by default, we can say all of the divs that are within container are going to get the flex property applied to it, and we can set it to be auto. And what auto will do is this will just set to the size according to the width and height properties, but it also grows to absorb any extra free space within the text container. So that's why these are being spaced out nicely. So if I select the element with a class of 1, which is this one here, which is going to be the first one, and we set a width value for that to be 200 pixels, and I'll also add in a border so you can see where the elements are ending and stopping. So now that I've forced that one to be wider, we see that it's taking up a little bit more extra space. So what if we wanted to, we've got 6 divs here, and what if we wanted to have a layout where we've got 3 divs and then another 3 divs. So 2 rows of 3 divs each. So I'll walk you through how to set that up. So first, let's just get rid of the spacing for that. I'm also going to add in the border box property for within the box sizing. And then for each one of the divs, let's set a default width. So that will be 33%, and also a default height for those elements. So set it up at 200 pixels. Let's see what this looks like. So we refresh, but we still want to get the 2 columns. And that's where we would use the various flex properties such as flex wrap. And what flex wrap does is it allows us to wrap the content if necessary. And in this case, if we've got a width of 33%, then we set up the wrap, and that's going to allow each one of those elements to take the appropriate spacing as it's wrapping. If we're doing a no wrap, so that was another value that we can set. So there's also the no wrap value. And if we go back out here and no wrap, that's what we saw earlier where we're not wrapping any of the content. So the no wrap, and this is also the default. You can also do a really interesting one if you want. There's a wrap reverse. And how this is going to work when we refresh, we're starting out 1, 2, 3 down here at the bottom, but then instead of going to the next below, it's doing a reverse of the wrap, and it's putting 4, 5, 6 on top. And I'll also do a quick update to this, and we'll do at 50%. So this will illustrate that a little bit more clear that we've got a wrap reverse happening here. There's also a flex flow property. So this is the flex direction of the wrap. So we can specify it at flex flow as well. So let's comment that one out and use flex flow. So what this is, flex flow is a shorthand property that sets the flex direction and the flex wrap. So we can specify if we want it to row and also wrap as well. So setting the wrap for the flex property. There's also a way to justify the content. So that's going to center the content. And if we're at 40%, and within the flex container, let's comment that out, and I'll make another space there so it's a little bit easier to read. And using the justify content, let's set it to center. So we refresh. And I do need to adjust the size because we're actually, with the width of 40%, we're easily filling the available space. So how about we change this to 100 pixels, and we refresh. And so now the content is going to be centered. You also have an option to position it as well. So if you want it to position center, you can do a flex end as well as a flex start. So that positions it over to the right hand side. The flex start is going to position it to the left hand side. And there's also space around, which will put spacing around each one of them and also make sure that they're at 100 pixels. So that space between them will shrink until there's no more space that's allocated between them as we resize the page. So the flex aligns it to the flex item to the beginning of the container, the end to the end of the container. The space around value provides space before and after the element, and then there's also space between as well. And what space between will do is this is going to put space between the elements. So notice that the one on the left moved to be flush to the left-hand side. The one on the right is flush to the right-hand side. And as long as there's space there, it allows it to resize. So as we were using the justify content for the horizontal, there's also a way to align vertically. So that's using the align items. So how about we make the height of the divs smaller, and we'll also make the height of the parent larger. So it'll be 300 pixels. I'll do a background color of red, and also set a background color for these ones, and set a background color of white for them. So let's see what this looks like. So when we refresh, I'm also going to hide the overflow content. So overflow, and we'll hidden so that they stay nicely within their containers. So we've got the flex justify, so that was updating the content between, and we can also use these together. So I'll add that one in after. So do an align, and when you do align items, you have an option to do a stretch for those. And I do need to get rid of the height because we're forcing the height on the elements. So that's why that wasn't working. So now we've got the height of those elements, so we're stretching it. There's also options where we can do a flex end, flex start. So it's similar to what we just saw with the horizontal version. This is how we can do that for the vertical. And you can use them together as well. So that will just keep them at the bottom. And you can also do a flex start, so that will put it at the top. You can center it, and you can baseline it, so sticking it right to the bottom of the baseline. So whatever the preference is, there's a number of options for alignment. So coming up next, we're going to look at how we can resize the various containers within the flex box. So that's still to come.